Well, channel. Please like and subscribe. We're on another conversation. This is my daughter Lucy, who I love very, very much. And yeah, and we're going to have a conversation basically about gender, sex, being homosexual and gay and Christianity and things like that. And how, yeah, how it can be very divisive and very used to beat people in the gay community with, and also misrepresented in the Christian community as well. So yeah, this is my daughter. You're doing a degree in what at the moment, Lucy?
I'm doing a degree.
Yeah, in what?
I'm doing a master's in psychology at the moment.
Okay, and you've got a book published as well, haven't you?
I do. I've got my undergrad English and then I did a master's in creative writing. So I've got a poetry book all about basically sexuality and the experience of growing up gay when you've grown up with religion. So
have you got the book with you? Pick it up. Show us your book.
I've got the prototypes. I've not got the actual book. I don't have it either.
All right. Okay, there we go. It's available on Amazon, is it?
It is. It's available on Amazon. I'll send you the link and you can put it in the bio if people want to read my bad poetry.
Okay, no, it's fantastic. Yeah, no, because the thing is, other people might have gone through similar experiences that you've gone through, and they might be able to read that book and relate to that and get something from it. So, yeah, so push your book. I hope somebody sees it. Yeah, I might relate to that. Tune in, see what you think. Okay. So let's start at the beginning. My daughter is a professed lesbian, and is a professed professed. She said, well, I don't know, and a professed Christian as well, which is a tough combination. But it's one of the things, to be honest, I think makes me a very proud dad, is because my daughter has one of the biggest struggles in Christianity she could have, and she cracks on with the relationship with God in the middle of that. And I just wish more Christians could be like Lucy, because that's what we should be doing. We should be pushing on with the relationship with God, putting and battling with our own sinful natures as well, because it's a battle that we all face every day. And that's for me. I'm still and I think that's my where I think it's a bit of a non-issue. We all have to do it. Battle day in, day out with it, and it's just your walk with the Lord. Anyway, so Lucy, what's your first question?
My first question is going to be a comment about what you said. Like I've said, I don't class being gay as a sin. It's something I used to do, and when I did, I really struggled with my faith. I've never felt further from God than when I was trying to be closer to God and try and abandon my sexuality and be closer to God when I thought it was an issue, when I thought I couldn't be a Christian and a lesbian. And when I now take out of the equation, when I remove that from the issue and say, no, being gay isn't a sin, loving someone isn't a sin. There's loads of things in the Bible that are classed as sin, like anger, jealousy, all those, and everyone's guilty of those, which could be easier classed as sins than homosexuality. Like, that is love. Some of it, yeah, with like sexual perversion, you can have kinks, you can have furries, people dressed like animals and have sex. That feels more sinful to me than the fact that I love another woman. It just doesn't make sense to me why it's classed as such a harmful sin, and why lesbians and gays and bisexuals have to own this sin and they have to claim this sin and consider it a sin, when all it is loving someone, which is the entire purpose of life. Like, without love, life is meaningless. And yes, you've got to have love for God and Jesus, and I understand that, but I can't imagine a life without love.
Okay, and lots of what you're saying is true, and what you're saying, there's nothing wrong with you loving Fern, that's fine, and God will acknowledge that you love Fern and you have a relationship with her. But what he will not appreciate, this is what I believe, is your physical union is what's not right before God. You can love somebody, you can have a passionate, loving, emotional relationship without sex. Again, sex, I get, is just so, again, that I'll say that I'll quote it in my last video, I'll quote it in this one as well. is Frankie Goes to Hollywood in Two Tribes. He says, we're living in an age where sex and horror are the new gods, and that is so true. Sex is a god of the Western world, and it's put on an altar and worshipped, and sexuality is all put on there, and sexuality is how you define yourself as a person, and sexuality is what you are as a person, and that, to me, and that biblically, is a lie. Sexuality is not who you are. Sexuality is not how to identify yourself. This is a lie of the Western world. Lucy is a beautiful, wonderful person. Me, I am an incredible creation, with or without sex. Sex is not part of it in some respects. In fact, sex is almost, I mean, if you look at the Bible as well, if you go back, sex was actually despised, and because it was something that got in the way of relationship with God, where men actually used to cut their own genitals off and become eunuchs, you know what I mean? Because it was just something that distracted their relationship with God. It was like, hang on, no, this is just a load of testosterone and it's like, it's just a distraction from a proper relationship. But if you want true relationship, I love my God, and my relationship with him is a very emotional, mental relationship, but there's nothing sexual in it, you know what I mean? And with my wife Kelly, who I love dearly, very little of that relationship is to do with sex. Very little at all. It's about being her friend and her companion, and going through incredibly tough times with her, and her going through tough times with me, and that's love, and that's relationship, and that's what you can have with Fern before God, and it'd be fine.
I'm really saying about how sex has become sort of a religion and a god on its own, and I understand that, but I feel that's more to do with the way the West is today, with the sexualization of women and men, and the growing sexualization of children, with the age of puberty getting lower and lower each year. So I understand that, and how sex has become such an issue with like pornography as well, and the rise of pornography, and that's ruining sex and ideas and values of sex, and I understand that in the same way. But the sex between a married man and woman and the sex between a married man and man is gonna feel no different unless it's perverted in either relationship, which it can be. But that's still, and I understand what you're saying as well with it not being an identity. The only reason I have to identify as lesbian is because it's different from being straight. Like, these days, if you're not the norm, you will have to come out. Like, I had to come out as gay because it wasn't the norm. And yeah, I suppose I didn't have to do that, but if I hadn't, would I just carried on dating men like I was previously? Or I don't know, it just feels like something you sort of have to do, because if you don't talk about it, it stays inside. That's why there's sort of like, I mean, I don't personally go to gay pride events because it's not something I need, but I support them because people that go to those, and yes, they can be really extravagant, and a lot of gay people, I know especially, people don't like gay people being in their face about their sexuality, and I understand why. And it can be quite off-putting, I suppose, if people are in your face about sexuality. But we've got to remember why they're doing that, because they have probably battled as much as me and as much as so many other people with that idea that it's wrong, or someone's told them that it's wrong. And the act of rebellion, yes, is going against that. And sometimes people have to go too far. And it can be too much, but if it's the only way they can feel they can love themselves, by owning it entirely, similar like how you do with Christianity, yeah, it's your identity and you can own it entirely because that's how you embrace it. Sometimes to embrace something that you actually hate and would change about yourself in a heartbeat, you have to be over the top, you have to be over dramatic, you have to own it to feel comfortable in it. And it is hard to do, but sometimes it does have to become part of your identity in order for yourself to actually face it. I had to do it for a while. I had to say to myself, I am a lesbian and it's fine. It takes time.
Excuse me. Yeah, it is I mean, as a father, and I'm growing up with you, when you first said that you don't like boys and you like girls, it didn't worry me as such, and I wasn't blown away by it as because I know again, sexuality to me, it wasn't a bit, it was big for you then. I didn't realize how big it was for you then. But because it really, I just thought it could have been just a phase. It's fine. The reality, again, the reality is what is normal. And the reality of normal is heterosexual relationship. That is normal because that's what everybody else is and you are not. That's what makes it normal. And so, of course, there was conflict in me as your father because I thought you're choosing a path that isn't accepted as normal, and that's going to present difficulties for you. And I knew that, and that's going to present battles for you in the culture that you're in, and in the kind of not so much in this culture because it's a lot better in this culture now, but in some like in the World Cup in Qatar, you can't go to Qatar, you know, you get arrested.
You think
that's not this? That's their culture and that's their problem. They need to work that out. I live in this country and I can talk to my daughter about anything and everything. We have freedom of speech in this country. How long for? I don't know, but we have it. And it's great because I can talk to you about absolutely anything and everything and not be offended. You know what I mean? I want to be able to share my journey as much as you can share your journey. And I never, when you came out to me, I didn't stop loving you. Or I said, oh no, I can't love my daughter. You know, and I hope you never felt that.
Like you didn't love them, or it was just.
It was I think it was frustration for you because your life was going to get really complicated and really mixed up. And of course, I was going to hopefully look for ways. Maybe it was just a phase, and maybe it was something that we could work through, and you could, you know, and hopefully, and then you just slip into the normal way of life. But it wasn't to be like that. No. So I've never had. I mean, that's again the only issue I had. I just know it'd have been easier for you if you'd have been a heterosexual.
I wish I was.
and that's just a fact. It'd have been easier for you.
Yeah.
In some ways, a relationship would have just been hard. Relationship would have been just as tough. But in some ways, it'd have been a lot easier for you to go through. And that's my only. It's like because. I know your walk of life that you've been on has been so painful and so hurtful and so divisive and so messed up in so many ways, Princess. And it hurts me to think that I wasn't, that you think I wasn't there able to help you because of I wasn't accepting part of your sexuality or something like that, because that's never been true. I've always been there for you, no matter what.
Yeah, I think it's complicated when I more of a person to do this than I'd like to talk about on here. But yeah, when we were going through it with my sexuality, I knew that you loved me as a father, but you've always said that you love God before you choose God before me, because God is the main thing. And that was something that I really struggled with you saying you put God before me. I think that was something that I struggled to understand. And then it was just the idea that because it was just when I first came out and you were just trying to fix it, that was the only issue. When I first told you, your first response was to try and fix it, which I understand with religion and thinking it might have been a phase and you just knew it would be easier and trying to help me out of it. But at the same time, I just felt I was a kid, I was vulnerable. So that's probably why it was so difficult. And then going to church and telling them and them trying to do similar things. And it was a lot for a 13, 14-year-old to handle when I was already in the midst of mental illness and such. So I think that's why it really started to be quite damaging. But yeah, it's something that I still carry, and I don't know, I'm in therapy obviously to work on many things, and I've been in therapy for years now, so I'm still working through it pretty much week by week of what I can handle and what I can't handle. And the only way I've been able to handle being gay is to say it shouldn't be a sin. And yes, people can say that's incorrect, but everything in the Bible's a sin. Like, there's so much in the Bible that's a sin, and it's like, everyone's a sinner. Okay, yeah, I'm a sinner for all these things, but I'm not gonna, if I stand at the gates of God and he's like, you're a sinner because you slept with a woman, I'll be like, could you not, I'll kill someone and then I'll feel better about being, I'd rather be a murderer.
It's just sin. It's just committing another sin. It doesn't matter. Sin's a sin.
Like, yeah, forgive me for murdering someone, but don't forgive me for touching my girlfriend's boobs. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense to me at all why something so loving and so,
God
like,
is love.
my relationship with Vern isn't about sex. It never has been. When we started dating, you know, it was electric. It was the talking. It was the fact that I've never met someone that I actually like talking to that was not like me at all. Like, she liked musicals and I like horror films. Like, we didn't have much to share, and usually I'd go for people who I have a lot of in common with. It's easy to talk to, easy to gel. But with Fern, it was, nah, I would like to get a really good job so I can get us a house and we can get a dog, and I look after her and I make sure she's okay. I would do anything for her, you know. I would build things with my hands for her, a sort of love. Like, I'm fine with that. And I have the same thing with Harriet though. Like, Harriet is my best friend, and yesterday I took 2 beds apart and put them back together just because Harriet wanted to change bedrooms. And that's something I do with people, and that's not about sex. Yes, that's just love, and I will always have love for people, but I don't understand why the sex part is such an issue when it's such a tiny part. I could give it up, yeah, but then I would feel that burden of sin. I would feel that sin as if it would feel heavier if I went abstinent from sex with women than it does now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't deal with that. I mean, I know it sounds bad, like I'm putting my own feelings before the wishes of God, but I've been down that route, and you know what happened to me. I almost didn't survive it. Do I want to give, yes, I want to give my life to God, but do I want to give my life to God? I don't want to die. I don't think he'd want me to die, but the only way I can ever process it is through either self-harm or trying to end my life, because I cannot deal with the guilt. I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a song about it by Hosier called Take Me to Church. If you want to have a look at that, it's a beautiful song. I believe he's gay.
Okay.
Hold on. Harriet, is Hosier a guy? Just find out. Not sure. Know the name, but they wrote a really, really good song about the experience of being gay and being in the church, and it's a cracking song if you'd like to have a listen to it and think about it. But yeah, that's just a lot of he him, just checking. But that brings me swiftly onto gender, you know.
You want to go on to gender? Can I just put one thing I want to say before, because you mentioned that I love God before you. And you have a problem with that.
No, I don't have a problem with it. I did when I was younger.
It is a lot to take on, and it's just, if you understand, it's having a relationship with God and knowing, hang on a minute, this being that I'm in relationship with God is the most powerful, almighty, wonderful being in existence. He created me and my daughter, where before anything, it makes sense for me to worship him and put him ahead of my life, because if I'm doing that, he's going to be doing that for you. He's going to be looking out for you. He's going to be, because I'll be praying and petitioning for you. I mean, when I pray to God with you, I don't pray that stop my daughter from being a lesbian. I don't pray. When I pray for you, I pray that your relationship with God is deepened, and that you have a deeper understanding of his love for you and what that means between you and him. That's what I pray when I pray for you. I'll let you come down here and visit us more, but it's not, again, it's not and I don't want to get into that of this is this and this is this. It's not. What's important is your relationship with God above me. that is more important, your relationship with God, than because it's an eternal thing, and you have one. And I believe you're born again. I believe you're saved, and so in that respect, another, it's like you're done and dusted, Lucy. You're saved. Well done. You know, the hard part's done and over with. You know, Jesus has done the hard work. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's like, so and now it's frustrating. So and it's just having that understanding in my heart that you're saved and you're going to be in eternity and blah 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 blah. And sexuality again seems very small an issue when you bring over the other side of relationship with God and who we are in the. And it's just, I think, it's something that you've got to work through with God, and however that will manifest and however long that takes or whatever. You may never. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a personal thing between you and God.
Yeah.
And stop feeling guilty about it and start focusing on your relationship with God, because that's what's important. Not give your guilt to God. He'll deal with it.
It's still like the more I delve into religion and read my Bible and involve myself more with God, and
don't do religion. Religion's not part of your relationship with God.
The more I involve myself with God, and I try and make sure I read the Bible and I study it, and I really try, and it just makes me feel like a completely different person. Like I don't know if it's a mental health thing with what my diagnosis is and such with my extremes, but I can't be religious, it seems, without being ill. And it's so complicated, but I try.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the relationship with God is always going to be a bit rocky.
Yeah, I think you're amazing because you try. I think you're absolutely what Christians should be is more like you sometimes, is because you take God to task and say, look, Lord, blah blah blah, and you have these debates with the Lord, and that's where I feel a lot of Christians should need to be. You're there. You don't realise how blessed you are in some respects, no. Some people haven't even got an idea what prayer is about and communication with God is. They're not even there yet, and you've got that.
I don't know. It feels like my prayer upset. Like I can't count how many times I've prayed to be cured and stuff like that. Like, and the fact that people think it's a choice. Like, do you personally think that I could choose to be heterosexual, or do you think I was born gay?
I don't believe you were born gay, no.
Do you think anyone's born gay?
I don't believe anyone's born gay or heterosexual.
When do you think it happens?
I believe it's more of a learned thing as you grow up. You see your mum and dad together and blah blah blah, and it's just because again, when you look at your experiences of sex, when I was 9, 10, 11, the thought of kissing girls and blah was horrible to me. It was like, these girls are horrible. Blah. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to know girls. I was far more interested in playing cars, Action Man, and scale electrics, and badminton. I was into badminton. And that's all my world was about. Girls were not a part of it. There was no sexuality in it whatsoever. It was just, but girls repulsed me. It's like, I don't want to know them. Hey, yeah, and they were scary things as well. Girls were very scary. Yeah, didn't want to know. But as nature took its course, I got 13, 14, testosterone, I started changing, and girls started to become a bit more interesting. And it's like, oh yeah, she's really pretty. Oh, why is that? And it became a thing, and then it became more of a sexual thing. But as a child, never came into it. It was not important.
Yeah, that's normal.
And that's normal.
Being a child, you don't really have sexual things or urges unless something happens to you. And I never had any sort of sexual or interest in anyone at those ages either. You know, it was only till I hit puberty that I had attraction, and that was instantly also towards women. Never had it towards men. Never. It wasn't a change. nothing changed. Suddenly, I hit puberty and I woke up and I thought, I fancy my best friend. And it was the most confusing thing ever. And it was horrible. And that was a whole other traumatic experience. But I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm gay. And it was horrible. And I didn't say it out loud. I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't admit it to myself. It was horrible.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. It's like, I think with the opposites in some ways, what about gender and stuff like that, and sexuality. Sexuality can change. I believe somebody straight can become gay, and also somebody gay can become straight, as you want to call it. And I believe, because I've met people that have done that. I've been in kind of friendships where people have been gay and they've said, well, all right, they've called themselves bisexual, which are they like men and women, and it's like, okay, but it's like, and when you get into, or it's like some of my friends while we were at university decided to, when I was at college, sorry, it was more of a phase. It was a phase. It was a fashionable thing to do for men to experiment with men and blah, and it was all like about again being sexual. But yeah, he was a heterosexual, but he liked sleeping with men for a bit, and it's like people played around with sexuality.
Yeah.
And were comfortable in that, and they could do what they want. But so, and again, I think given the right kind of pummeling, and he could convert anybody to sexuality. It's like another friend I had when I worked back in Preston. He was a homosexual, and he was a really funny guy. I used to have lots of good conversations with him, but his mission in life was to turn lots of heterosexuals into gays. That was his mission, and he was successful in some of that sometimes, but in some of the times he wasn't. And it's like, so that's what I've seen evidence that sexuality isn't as fixed as you believe it is. It's not as fixed as, even in myself over the years, I've had times where I think, oh, that man's very attractive and that man's very beautiful. But for me, it's
gender. It's a whole spectrum, and with sexuality, I wouldn't say I'm 100% lesbian, because I have had relationships with men where I've thought, oh, almost that's nice. It's not right up there with what I feel for women, but it's not awful. I could cope with it, and I've dated men like that and thought I could do this. But that was just me trying to really commit to trying to be straight. But it wasn't love. I wouldn't want to do for them things I'd want to do for a wife. Like it would just be friendship, and that would be great. But it wouldn't be any more than friendship. It wouldn't be a companionship. It wouldn't be a best friend. It wouldn't be anything like that, because I just don't have that connection with them. But in a way, I'd say I'm like probably 90% for women, 10% for men, because I have had those relationships. I have had good experiences with men, but not hetero to consider myself interested in them in the same way. Like, you can appreciate a man. Like, you can think, if you were forced into heterosexuality and homosexuality opposite. So if you thought being homosexual was normal, and that was normal in the Bible, and you tried to force yourself to do it, and it wouldn't be awful because that guy was quite good looking. It wasn't the awful, he bought you a really nice meal. He took you somewhere. He was really good to talk to. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can cope with it, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't work, and that is just how I feel. And I have tried to change myself. I've tried to do like the sort of like when you have the urges, try to pray about it, trying to do all that. I don't have any proof that conversion of gay to straight works. The only thing I can see is being abstinent, which the suicide rate is insane, and I don't think I'd be able to do that. So if there is a conversion, how would it be possible, and would you put me into it?
The conversion therapy? No, that's something that you'd have to. Again, my experience of my own mind and my own heart is I know, understanding the complexities of me as a human being in God, and a sinful human being. I've got to remember I'm a sinful human being, how I operate in this world. I know and I understand I'm capable of doing absolutely anything. If I so fueled myself and said, right, I'm going to discover what homosexuality is, I'm going to try the word of homosexuality and go down that path, I could do that if I wanted to.
Yeah, I tried it.
But the point I'm trying it's a mind over matter thing. But I think if you, I don't know, it might take months, it may never happen, but if you conditioned yourself in a certain way, yeah, I think you could condition yourself. It's not just with sexual, you can condition anybody to do anything. It's like with say, could you condition somebody into taking their own life? Yes, you can.
Yeah,
that is, you can get people to take their own lives by conditioning and convincing them it's the right thing to do. And there's the kamikaze pilots in World War II. That's what they did. They flew their planes straight into the American aircraft carriers because it was built into them. It was an honourable thing to do. Blah blah blah. There's glory in death, and they believed that, and that's why they did it. It's the same thing I believe with sexuality. You can condition your reactions, and you can. But again, it's got to be something done on your. You can't have somebody. How could I put this? You've got to want to change yourself, but you can't do it if you don't want to change. If you don't want to change, it's not going to happen. No matter what therapies or bling blah blah, it's in your heart. If it's great, God, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but if in your heart you're a lesbian and that's where you're going to be, it doesn't matter what you do, what systems books you read, it's not going to work. There's got to be something in you that it says, I want to go down that path and I'm going to commit to that path 100% and go down that path. And that journey will take you on a, I don't know exactly, because it'll be your journey. But that's what I do believe in that sense. The human machine is incredible, can experience incredible things that may not seem brilliant or good or wonderful, but they will process and take in and get the best out of that. It's like going into war. This is not a good thing, I don't think, for humans to do, but men and women have had to do it throughout the ages, and I believe they'll go in there. Sometimes the phenomenon in World War I where you get it's just, war is horrible, but you see the best of men and women come out through that because they're choosing. They're told to go in there, point a gun at a guy in a uniform, and kill them or shove a bayonet in his heart. That's what they're told to do in the name of war. And it's, how do you deal with that? How do you cope with this extreme emotional confrontation? Some men cope with it better than others, but it's sent some men round the lip, and understandably so. Post-traumatic stress disorder was a condition that came from World War I. Men could not comprehend what they were seeing around them, so the minds just
It's awful. I don't have to.
But it's how they, because they. Go on, sorry, you broke up.
No. About war, I don't agree with war. I don't agree with anything to do with war. I don't think we should have them. If I was told I had to fight in a war, I wouldn't. I would stand on a battlefield and let them kill me, because I do not support that. I would never harm people for the sake of a government or a country. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why we put people on the front lines in the armies and all that. I don't understand it, why we would send hundreds of innocent people to kill further hundreds of innocent people, because it's not the governments that get bombed, it's the schools. It's horrible. I don't support war at all.
Oh, it's horrible, but men and women are involved in it, and it's how they process these extreme things, and they do. And I believe out of all this war, lots of good things happen between these people that are forced to fight in the middle of it. Lots of incredible things happen. A mind-blowing experience of human relationship in extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
And you'll find that in war. But it's the same, and that's why I mean the human machine. This guy is absolutely mind-blowingly complicated and beyond my comprehension, but it's incredible. And to say that you're going to be stuck as a lesbian for the rest of your life, I think is incredibly limiting to yourself.
I've tried and tried, and you can't see inside my head or heart and know. But yeah. I talked to multiple partners in the past, Fern included, my current partner, and said, I need you to understand about how much I battle with my religion, and I need you to understand that if there ever is a complete conversion therapy that will cure me and I can do it, I will do that. And that will obviously mean me ending my relationships, and it will mean breaking every promise I've made to whatever partner I've been with at the time. But that is something I genuinely want, and I've tried to do many different ways. I did it at church when they tried to help me. You know, we worked through some stuff, and then there was the thing about conditioning that you said. That's like the conversion therapy that I think it's illegal here, but it's you can still do it basically by whenever you have an impulse for same-sex attraction, you cause some harm to yourself, usually through like an electric shock, and that is how you condition the body to not be homosexual. And as far as I'm aware, that doesn't work.
That's very primitive. Yeah,
that's the only way I've seen it known to be done at the moment. I mean, I know it's because it's been illegal in so many places. I don't know how far they've gone with it, but if a Christian ever said to me, I've got a way to make you straight, I'd take them up on it. No questions asked. I would do that. I do not want to be gay. It causes more harm than good.
I don't think it ever should be illegal, but it shouldn't be enforced either. I think that's what should be illegal. It shouldn't be enforced on anybody. It has to be the choice of the...
But at the same time, it's very damaging.
Well, it's the choice of the... this is where we'll go on to gender now. They're given a choice of they can choose a gender. Now, I believe that's very damaging for them, but it's their choice. If they're going to do that, they said that they've got the freedom to do that. I believe that the big thing in America at the moment is telling kids that they can choose their gender at the ages of 4 and 5. I think that's insanity and incredibly damaging to the children. I think that's edging on child abuse, because children should not be entertained with ideas of sexuality and stuff like that at such a young age. They should be, I don't know, throwing sticks at trees and you know what I mean? And playing in the dirt and going for walks down the river, and it's just, and then being told about, oh, you don't have to be a boy, you can be a girl if you want. It's like, what the hell are you going on about? It doesn't even compute at that age, and I think it's harmful. And I think that's where we differ. Is I think where sexuality can be a thing of is malleable and not rigid, but I do believe gender is. Yeah, gender is something that we. I'm a man. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm a DNA. I'm a chemical man. Physically, I'm a man. And you can tell, you know, the voice. I've got a deep voice. I'm a bloke. I get, you know, I'm such a bloke sometimes. So I worry. I think flipping it. That's so stupid, because some bloke things are really stupid. You know, right? And it's just such a man thing to do. And I'm definitely a man. And my wife is definitely a woman, because she is so in many ways so opposite to me, and that's why we're working in such good ways. I think sometimes is she just sees things differently to me. She is a calming to my anger. She is the reason to my insanity. She's so many different things, but it's because she's a woman that she can do that so well. And they're two, and she can have babies. I can't have babies, and I don't care what they say in the science books in America. I can't have babies, no matter how many times a man tried to get me. It wouldn't happen, because I haven't got ovaries. No. You know, it's not going to happen, because I'm a man. A woman is a woman. A man is a man. And if you believe that I mean, if a man believes he's a woman, that's fine. But I'd say, look, you need to go and see a doctor. You need help because you're a man.
I understand. I think where our differences is I separate sex and gender as two separate things. So sex is the ones that you're born with. So I'm female. My sex is female.
Okay.
By gender, I'm she, her. I'm a girl. I identify also as female. So I'm lucky in the fact that I know I'm a girl. I feel like a girl. I know that. But then I've got other people in my life who their sex, such as Harriet, their sex is female. They know that. That's fine. Never been an issue. They put on forms. If you ask for it, sex, female, no problem. They understand that. But their gender identity is non-binary. So they identify as they, them, which I understand can be confusing for some people. But the idea of the sex, that's the XY chromosome, that's a given. That's always, and we've got intersex as well and things like that, which make it a bit more complicated. But that's sex, that's fixed. But with gender, it's an identity. Now, I don't support the idea of there being hundreds of genders. I think it is a bit over the top. But again, with what I said about the idea of rebellion, people take it too far, and that's how they deal with it on their own way. I respect it. I just let them get on with it. I've not got anything to say about it. But I think there are, I would say the she, her, they, them, he, him. Like those feel like the spectrum, because you've got the masculine, the feminine here, and then this area in the middle, this entire area would be the non-binary to me. And that's obviously my personal view. Other people might see the spectrum differently, but that is how a lot of people see the spectrum of gender. So that's female, that's male, right? That's fixed sex. Gender is similar, but there's different chemicals. So how men have testosterone usually, and women have estrogen. So a lot of people that are born female, like Harriet, born female, they have elevated levels of testosterone. They have an Adam's apple. And yes, that's different for their sex, but what does that say for their gender? When they do have difference of those hormones, it would change them who they are as a person. And that's just a natural thing that their body does, and that's who they identify as, and that's who they feel like. And that's the same for transgender people. So they can be born a man, but they'd never feel right. It doesn't work. And yes, they have to actually go to therapy and have treatment for gender dysphoria, which is classed as a mental illness. And they have to have that for years before they can even attempt to try and transition. And most people kill themselves before they can even get to that point, because it is so damaging that they can't access the care they need. Like, yes, therapy's good. Any trans kid needs therapy. I understand that, because some of it is just some other issue, some of it's issues with identity, some of it is like mental health or trauma.
Oh, I think a lot of it's indoctrination.
What?
I think a lot of it's indoctrination.
I think some people do their kids the gender and being taught. I think it only issues to educate on gender.
You're breaking up a bit again there, sorry, Princess.
Sorry, so I was just saying about how they're raising children these days with an education on what gender and sex is. Not so much on the sexuality side, they don't really do that as far as I'm aware. It's more about gender and gender ideals. So with the rebellion of the standard ways that we're supposed to perceive men and women, I think that's a lot of what the genders that we're seeing now have come from. So the stereotypes of women, people want to rebel from that. The stereotypes of men, obviously we need to rebel from that and move forward, because it's not logical to expect these specific gender roles, and people don't fit into them anymore. So in schools, I understand why they're teaching people about gender, and you can say, you don't have to be this, you don't have to be that, you don't have to wear skirts if you don't want to, you don't have to wear this, you don't have to do any of these things. And that's just a conforming role. So they're just telling kids they don't have to conform to anything. You don't have to.
That's a problem of our society, though.
Why?
Because say if Putin went mad and we had World War III, next week all this gender stuff would be out the window and it would be back to normal, as men would be the hunter-gatherers and women would be following these men, because men because there'd be a need. They'd have to go hunting for food. They'd have to go hunting for water and shelter because all of it had been gone. And quickly, I think what very restore was, oh, look, in this relation, I'm going to go out and because people are going to start trying to kill you. You're my woman. I'm going to look after and protect you. I'm going to provide a home for you, and I'm going to go out and hunt some bear for our tea. And I think that's kind of role that would quickly reinstate itself.
I can do.
Yeah, you could, but not as effective as a man, generally speaking.
Effective than many men. I'm stronger than many men. I'm more efficient. I'm smarter than many men. I could kill a bear better than multiple men could. That's not a gender thing.
Generally speaking, you couldn't do. That's a myth.
What?
That where women can outperform men in physical tasks and the same.
Obviously, statistically, men are stronger than women. Yeah, I understand that. But there'll be many men out there that I am stronger than.
I'm not saying it's a general thing. I'm not saying it's strictly true. So I'm saying for the majority of men, they are physically stronger than the majority of women. There will be exceptions, but that's the majority. That's what I'm trying to say is the normal. Again, that if you like it or not, that's normal.
That's the majority. But I'm saying, as the rise of video games is, a lot of men are sitting playing video games all day, and a lot of women are out at the gym improving their body. So I think probably in a few years the statistics might change, not just because of genetics. Obviously genetically men are going to be stronger because of their chromosomes, but I think it's a fair game. I can see just as many women going out and hunter gathering, doing things like I played Fallout most of me like younger years, so I would love to be in that situation and go out and find things and craft things. And the idea of being a scavenger in a wasteland, that's amazing to me. I would love to provide for Fern and I'm not
saying women are incredibly physically resilient and haven't got incredible strength and emotion. I'd say women have far more emotional strength than men, but I think that's a female quality. But again, that's a generalisation. There'll be some men that have that kind of quality, but that's kind of, again, you'll see it on YouTube. Again, if you go on YouTube and you look for it, they got the best boxing woman there was and put her in the ring with a man, and she got beat because he was a man. It wasn't because she was not good at boxing. She was a very competent boxer and she was very good at it. But the bloke that she was in was bigger and stronger than her, and a bloke, and his punches were hard. It doesn't matter how good a boxer she was going to be. It's because she got put in there with her man. And also that race, I think that race, I don't think it was in the last Olympics, which was the race where they passed the baton on, or the relay race.
No, I don't.
Well, it's another example of the difference between men and women. For some reason, they started the race, and it was all the men. But because of the technical cock-up, the woman started. They went to, it was a mixed race, and then they passed the baton. The men were meant to pass the baton on to the women, then the women race. Anyway, the race shot off. It was all the women and this one man, and this man ran really quickly, and he left the women standing, but the women all kind of, and then he handed his baton over to this woman, and she shot off, and she had a massive head start. And all the other women caught up and passed their batons on to their men, and then their men set off, and then all these men, one by one, passed that woman that had that massive head start. And it's just, and they're all excellent runners, and they're all brilliant at what they do, but men are physically stronger than women, generally speaking, when it pushed to the, and that's just, again, because men are men and women are women. And I'm not saying women can't be strong and can't be tough.
No, I understand. Get that.
The general way of things is, that's the way of sexuality and gender. That's a general norm.
General, I get that.
Yeah, that's a general norm.
The way men and women are different in how the body's designed and strength and such. It's not really my area of knowledge. My main areas of knowledge are my own personal experience, my experience with religion, sexuality, and then from what I've learned at university and my friends' experiences. So I don't have much knowledge to be able to say anything about those sorts of things with how people are built up and how people are made and what chemical imbalances and what chemicals they may have or how people are made. I mean, I know generally that men are stronger than women, and that's, you know, that's a given with how they're made. But at the same time, I just think times are changing and people struggle so much to move with them.
I struggle with that argument. What do you mean by times are changing? Because I don't see anything's changed. I see actual human behaviour getting worse, and the way we treat each other. I don't think we're a particularly enlightened race at the moment. I think we're a very selfish, backwards race because we're so self-obsessed. And I think generations before us have had a more enlightened view on what's going on. I don't think that what get with what doesn't. I don't see anything in the Western world as being really good right now. I see it anti-family, I see it as anti-relationship, and I see it as anti-God. And these are all things that break down society, not help bring it together. And I see that's sometimes I look at Putin. I don't agree with what he's done at all. The war in the Ukraine is wrong. But when you put yourself in his position and look at the West, why would you want to be part of the Western world? It's like, I can honestly think, yeah, I won't want to be part of the Western world. I don't like what my country stands for. I don't like what America stands for. There's lots of things that are going on in the Western world which I think are horrible, and it's just it's anti-human. I think that's the thing. We are machines made in the image of God. We're the most complicated, most advanced machine on the face of the planet. We don't understand who or what we are, but in our arrogance, we think we do. In our arrogance, we think we know better than God. And I think that's why, don't put yourself down, princess, if you've got an issue with, oh, I'm a lesbian, I don't know about it's not, you know what I mean? It's not important.
That's not really. I meant about how genders are and how more people are different in how they experience each other and the world, and there's a different relationship. I think mostly I'm doing this at the moment in psychology about how times are changing, because the age of puberty, which I said before, the age of puberty is getting younger and younger each year, and that's a huge change. It used to be like 13 you'd hit puberty, now it can be as young as 9, and that's because of our diet. That's just how it is now, and that age is going to continue to get lower and lower, and that's insane, but that's how the world genetically is changing. And with the exposure to social media, the exposure to pornography, the limits on the internet and what the internet has given us since like the late 90s and like onwards, and with like things that kids are exposed to, the world is completely changing. And I know that it's hard to get used to it, but if you don't like it, you say yourself, like, God's will is God's will. If this is the way that God wants this is the way it's going to be. And you do have to go along with it, like you say about like global issues, global warming and things like that. If it's God's will, it's going to happen anyway. You can't stop it. And that's similar to how I think maybe you should perceive this. Like, this is God's will. This is how revolutions happen. If you want a revolution to happen, something has to crumble before you can uprise from it. So yes, all these gender things and sexuality things might be overwhelming for you, but they'll have to happen if you want to overcome them. They'll have to get to that limit, I suppose, where you'll have to have something to fight about, which could be where you come in and feel better about that, like for yourself and your religion. But personally, for me, I think it's a good thing, because I think people's relationships with each other are much stronger and much more secure with not having these roles and identities of family and structure that's been built on religion. I do think they've been quite toxic to people. Such as myself. I mean, I was raised with a single mother, and you were there part of the time when, you know, it was a very dysfunctional upbringing, but I don't think that it was a negative experience because of that. I know it probably damages people not having a mother and a father, but in a way, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to treat people having a single mother, and it's made me a different person, and I think it's raised me to be a better person. And I know that if I wanted children and I didn't have a partner, I would adopt a child myself and raise that child myself, and that would be fine for me, and I'd be comfortable doing that. And in the eyes of Christianity, maybe that wouldn't be right, because, oh, I don't have someone to raise this child with, that's not a family. But what would it matter if I was raising a child on my own? Why is that different? Why is that wrong?
It's not wrong. This is I think the problem is that's fine, but don't rubbish the natural order. When the natural order is a man and a woman bringing up children, that's a natural order.
And that will always be the norm. That will always be the norm, and that's fine. But for a lot of people, it's growing that it doesn't work. It doesn't work for a lot of people anymore. And yes, that will always be the norm, and it'll hopefully stay that way so that we can continue to populate and reproduce. But
yeah, we're stuffed if it doesn't. That's a problem. That's why God has a problem, I believe, with that side of it, because it stops procreation, it stops children being born, it stops the nurturing of a family, or a father and a mother. I do believe that's important for children. They have a father and a mother. I tried, even though you can't remember, I tried my best to be there for you in that situation, which I found very frustrating. But again, I was in a situation that was totally geared to give power to the woman and not the father. All my in this wonderful Western world, my fatherly importance doesn't matter in the interjection of my input to my children's lives isn't important, and I think that's abhorrently wrong, and I think I missed out on such a lot with you because of that, because the courts would give custody to you, to your mum, like that, and that's just the way it is.
Isn't that more situation though? Because I know when I was born, you were younger than I am now, so it's probably more of a situational thing. And mum was older and probably had like more stability to raise children, whereas you were quite young. So I don't think that was a gender thing. Because I know with abortion, that's the woman's choice because it's her body. But more sides with
another issue we'll talk about another time.
What?
That's another issue we'll talk about another time.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm pro-choice while I'm there. But yeah, my child was my child. But I think a lot of families need to break away from the idea that in order to be happy and to be functional, they need to find a man by this age and have a child by this age and get married and have a home, because it's not, you can't do it anymore. I'm 26 this month. I can't afford a house. I can't afford a wedding. I can't afford a car. That's not going to be logical for most people in my generation. I'm living with friends because that is the family I have right now, and that is the family I can afford right now. And I'll be living with Harriet, my girlfriend, and my girlfriend's sister for probably the next 5 years, and they will become my family, even though it's not the norm. We can't afford any other way. And perhaps my brother Joe might move in, mum might move in at one point when we have to look after her, and then that'll be a family of 6. I might have children at this point, or maybe adopt children, and then it's a bit even bigger family and people will come and go. But I think the actual idea of family, despite how it is between a man and a woman and having children, that nuclear family, that is becoming outdated with the state of the world. People can't afford to do that, and yes, some lucky people can, and they can do that. I can't.
I think that's
believe it.
No matter how much I see, if I never saw you ever again for the rest of my life, you would always be my daughter.
Yeah.
By blood. And there is a difference. Your family and your adopted family, as you call them, it's fine, you've got that, but you will always be my daughter, no matter what gender you choose, or whatever sexuality you choose, or whatever you throw yourself into, you'll always be my daughter.
Yeah, I
like it or not.
The highest like family and children, they'll probably know Harriet as like Uncle or Auntie Harriet, whatever gender thing they choose, or just Harriet. Like they'll know Harriet as a family member, despite not having a blood relation. They'll probably know it.
Point is, I think Harriet's brilliant. I think Fern's brilliant. I think they're both really nice ladies, and I'd like, you know what I mean. And I've sat down and chat with them. Harriet's the nutter. She's off her head, Harriet. But she's the personality of Harriet, I think, is brilliant. But she's not my daughter, and Fern's not my daughter. You are.
I don't be a daughter.
And I'm sorry it's caused you so many problems, but you are my daughter and I am your father.
All right, Dad. Whole book out.
and that's different and that's unique. And it's not to be, again, I think it's just been rubbished, that relationship and the importance of that relationship there by the Western world. It's not important. You can have a relationship with who you want and what you want. No, this is important. My being able to fight for my, you see, all right, I was 25 when I got involved with your mum and things like that's fine. And it didn't work out, that's fine. But it didn't stop me from loving you any less. My love for you was still just as insane. I love you so much, and I wish I could show you how much I love you. But and that's never changed, and I'm never going to stop loving you. And it's because you're my daughter.
I know.
And and I do feel a man's relationship with his family has been totally rubbished and taken away from him. The amount of times I tried to get to see you, but I was stopped by social services, I was stopped by nurses and doctors, and I was so frustrated. I could not see my daughter, and my heart was breaking. You know, and I used to bang my head against a brick wall. So what are you playing at, Lloyd? You know, what, this world's mad. I just wanted to put you in the car and drive off and solve the lot of it.
I need it.
Yeah, they were all bonkers.
They were just help me.
Oh, they believed they were trying to do the right thing. I appreciate that, but it didn't stop. Yeah, I thought, yeah, we could all go sort off and get a caravan in Wales somewhere and just chill. I just didn't need a lot of it. But that's about relationship as well. And I think relationship, the family unit is what God, I think, again, going back to my faith, he is Father God. God is about family. God is about relationship. God is about coming together as family. God's about adoption and being adopted into family. He is so about family, it's unbelievable. That's why he sent Jesus, is so he could have his family back. You know what I mean? Whereas that kind of love is mind-blowing. I know how much Jesus loves you and me. He died for us, and he didn't have to. He didn't deserve to. And you know what I mean? He never did anything wrong. But he said, no, because my father wants a relationship with Andy and Lucy and Joe and whoever, I'm going to die for you. I'm not just a hellish. I don't think we understand what happened on Calvary's cross, because he didn't just die. He got separated from a father in a way that he'd never known before. He lost his father's love. He became sin. He became everything that's wrong with me and you. He became all that before his dad, and his dad hated him. His dad looked at him and said, I'm turning my back on you because you are everything I hate.
Didn't know
that. That's mind-blowing. I can't get my head around that. And he did. God turned his back on him. And that's when Jesus cried out on the cross. He said, Father, why have you forsaken me? He says, I've forsaken you because you've become sin. You've become the sin of everybody, and I hate you. But the beauty of it, and that's what's a wonderful thing, is he never committed any of that sin himself.
Yeah, he took it.
He took it all for us. So it's not just dying what he did for us. He changed the outcome. He changed the universe so that you don't have to suffer the consequences of sin. I don't have to suffer the consequences of sin. We know Jesus and we love him. We're going to heaven. You're in a sexual relationship that may be sinful, but it's not going to get in the way of anything because Jesus has dealt with that.
Do you believe in?
Hey?
Do you believe in?
In what?
Hell.
Yes, there is a hell. Hell's another. Oh, why? Again, as a Christian, you say there's a heaven and hell, but you're talking about interdimensional realms, and I've actually had what does hell exist as a fire and brimstone? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's again when Jesus died. Theologically, some theologians will debate this with you and others, but I personally believe Jesus went to hell. He dumped sin there, and then he smashed the gates of hell open and took those that didn't deserve to be there with him. And so hell, to be honest, has been cast astray. You know what I mean? It's a ruined empire.
I believe that's my belief.
It's absolutely been. But it does say in the Bible that, but again, this is after the second coming. There's going to be a second death for Lucifer and his armies, and it's called Hades, and it's called hell, and but it's a second death. So there is going to be another hell, but that is exclusively for Satan and his fallen angels, and all them that after the second coming decided they made a choice of. They're going to fight with Satan against God. That's where the second hell is. But hell is there's also the idea of purgatory. Does that exist still? But there's lots of different things with hell, and because these places are interdimensional places, they're real, but we can't see them, or they are there, but they're in places that we can't reach physically because of our physical limitations. So yes, hell's real, Lucifer's real, demons are real, spiritual warfare is real, and the evidence of that is all around us.
Yeah.
And it's a very real thing. This Bible is not a made-up book. The Bible's a factual book on human condition and human life and God interacting with his creation. And when we start to realize that now and put that into perspective now, you start to see the world as a very different place and a very scary place in some respects, because people, again, some theologians may differ with me on this one, but I call little g gods, and people don't realize they are little g gods.
What does that mean?
You are a fallen god. You are made in God's image. Therefore, you're going to have qualities of God about you. He's an artist. God, you've got to see God as the ultimate artist, the ultimate creator. And he puts his time, his patience and love, his know-how into the creation of you. Not just you, the whole world, the universe around us. This is his creation. So there's a bit of God in everything. So when you say that you're a little g God, and not just in the sense that also you're a little g God because you are not the God that you were intended to be. You're a fallen God. You are sinful in nature. Yeah, I call you a little g God because there's only one God. That's a big G God, and he's the boss.
Reminds me yesterday, actually. It's a poem by James Byrne. I can't remember the full poem, but he basically says in it he's spending a day with his nephew, and he's trying to explain like philosophy to this 4-year-old or however old the nephew was, and the kid keeps asking him like, who made this, until James says, he shows him a watch, and he said, who made this? And the nephew goes, the watchmaker. So and then he says to the kid, who made the leaf then? And he went, the leaf maker. And the line I like the most is James writes, and then he tucked the thumbprint of God into his pocket. And it's just...
Yeah, and it's all there. It's all there. God's plan and design is all there still. And what Jesus had to do was get rid of the sin. And he's done that. And we can now have that relationship with God. But you do, I think people forget, Christianity is an inclusive faith. The invitation of Jesus is open to everybody. But it's up to you if you believe what Jesus did or not. That's your choice. And that's where it becomes
All my friends.
That's your choice.
That's my choice.
It's yours. Do you believe Jesus was the Son of God or not? Because it's like I try to explain. It's like a car, and you've got 24 hours to get from Land's End to John O'Groats, and you've got this Bugatti Super Vero mega machine there, and it's called Jesus, right? And it says, right, so we can do it. It's not a problem. It says, yeah, I like that, but I don't believe in Jesus. Well, you can't get in the car then. You can't make that journey if you don't acknowledge Jesus. If you're denying, and you're not going to be able to do it. And it's so you can say, yeah, everybody's going to go to heaven. Everybody does nice things and blah. It's rubbish.
What about end time while we're alive, and God appears in the sky and he's like, "Here I am. End times is happening," and all the horsemen are out and everything, and suddenly Harriet runs in my room and it's like, "It's happening.
Yeah,
I believe in God now. Am I saved?" I'll be like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, that's where people will fall on their face and say, yeah, of course you're real.
It's not feel out though, because I swear in the Bible, or I've read somewhere or I learned somewhere, that the act of faith is blind faith. So you have to believe in God and Jesus without this solid proof. So when God appears in front of me, obviously I believe in him. But if I've not had that blind faith before, is that real faith?
Oh, that Lucy.
You have faith in something if it's right in front of you. That's not faith, that's just knowledge.
That's right, but then you have knowledge of God, and it's up to you if you accept it or deny it.
If it's right in front of me,
you can still deny it. This is the whole point. This is what, again, is as a Christian, when I become a born again Christian, I'm not made perfect overnight and everything's Christian. No, actually, my life becomes tougher because I realise, hang on a minute, that's not right, and I've got to renew my walk with God every day. That's part of my relationship with God, because you know what happens in my walk with God is most days I get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, yeah, I really talked to that person the wrong way. Sinful. Oh, I shouldn't have thought about that person like that. Sinful. I shouldn't have. And it's all, and at the end of the day, I feel like a complete idiot. So I start again the next day. Hey, Lord, got it wrong yesterday. Start again. And that's how you build relationship with God. And that's just sinful nature in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about the beauty of Christianity, is because when I get to heaven and I put my book of life to be judged before it, and it's going to be full of rubbish. You did that. What is that? And he said, yeah. I said, but, and they said, hey, yeah, you deserve to go to hell, Andy. Yeah, I know. I said, hang on a minute. I know him. And this is where Jesus will step in and say, give me his book. There you go, right in the bin. You accepted me. And it doesn't matter what you did, because you accepted me and you chose me over the rubbish of life. You're in. Win-win.
How can you choose him over the rubbish of life, though? Like, yes, hey, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for my sins. So I'm going to go and murder someone because he's going to forgive me anyway.
This is what another thing it says in the Bible. It says, if you're a true believer of God, you will become a lover of the law. What does that mean? The lover of the law?
Bible law?
Partly, because Jesus said he didn't come to take away the 10 Commandments, or he didn't come to take them away. He came as a fulfillment of the law. The law is what it's all about. The law was broken by men, and because it's Christian law that says murder's wrong, and it's Christian law that says lying's wrong or deceit is wrong. It's Christian law that sets up for these, says, if you break these laws, nobody can keep the 10 Commandments, and God knew that. That's why he had to send his son. But if you love the Lord with all your heart, mind, body and soul, you're going to try and keep your 10 Commandments. So you're not going to start rushing out, shooting people, saying, yeah, God forgives me. I'm going to shoot them in the face because God's going to forgive me. He said, no, one of God's commandments is don't kill people. Right, I'm going to run around saying, no, I'm not going to kill you and shoot you in the face because my God says that's not a good thing to do.
So I'll bring that up.
Hey?
That point you made there about knowing not to do it because it's the sin, and you can't kill people because you're not supposed to. So I'm bringing that back to the point I made earlier about how when I say I can't have sex with women, I can't have the act of sex. It's a repeated sin. It's who I am as a person repeating this sin. So it doesn't feel like I can fully commit my life to God.
You're saying to me, this is your human nature is in conflict with your faith.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's rubbish.
Yeah, I have no answers for you there, Princess.
I never say that in my life.
Sorry, I've no answers for you. No. It's again.
Repeat. You can't not repeat it. Yes, I can make sure. I try not to steal. I try not to lie. I try not to be jealous. I would never try and harm anyone in a malicious way unless I'm really annoyed. But I try not to be bad. I try not to be sinful. And the only sin I ever seem to really commit is the fact that I have sex, and it's something I do constantly. Well, not constantly. I'm not. But it's something I do multiple times, and it's something that I'm going to continue to do, and it just feels horrible. It's like, how can I call myself a Christian when I'm repeating this sin? And it's like, why is it a sin? And I get in a whole thing, and it's just rubbish.
All Christians repeating sin. That's what Christians do, and it's the acknowledgement that they do that makes them a Christian.
I can't repent every time I have sex. It'll ruin me. It hurts. It feels horrible. It's so hard to explain and understand if you're not in that.
No, I don't want to pretend I do understand it, Princess. I don't want to do that. It's all I can. That's why I want to encourage you to have that deeper relationship with God, because He will have answers for you.
Well, if any subscribers know how to cure gayness, please get in touch.
Oh.
I'm ready.
That's not. The Lord might want to use you in your situation with what's going on in your life to reach other gay people in the gay community, and that's you submitting your life to God, and God will use you in amazing. You know what I mean? It's you saying, "All right, this is my life, Lord. You use it. You take my frustration with my sexuality. You take my frustration, and you do something with it. I'm going to submit my life to you. You're God. You created me. You know better than me. Well, let's get this ball on the road." And He will. And He will say, "Right then, Lucy, I'm going to shove you in that situation." It might not be what you think. It might be and that's what I've found with my experience with my God. And I know my God's the same as yours. When I say, "Oh yeah, God's going to do this and God's going to do that," He'll say, "Ha, there you go, Andy. There's a curveball for you. Deal with that in your faith." And you're like, "What am I meant to do now?" And it's a struggle and it's a battle. But the difference is, as a Christian, these struggles and battles are worth having. You there, Princess?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the picture's frozen up a bit. And that's what I mean. These battles and struggles have a point to them, have a purpose, have a meaning, have a reason to the human condition. So, and you will find that in your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Irrespective of how you feel about yourself and your guilt issues and all that, start having your relationship with God and let Him deal with that, and He will.
I tell you, how much time we're on? We're on like almost 2 hours.
No, it's 1 hour 18 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's all right then.
Do you want
to say quickly?
Transgender and all that. Do you want to cover transgender issues now, or?
I mean, if something you'd like to discuss, I think I've discussed it earlier a little bit. I don't really know much about it as I'm not transgender myself, and I know transgender people, but it's not really my story to tell for a lot of them. I can talk on behalf of being a lesbian, but
there's a guy at our church. Well, he calls himself Rachel, and he's a woman, but he was a hermaphrodite. He was born with both organs. His parents chose his sexuality, but it was the wrong one. And now he's kind of he's had, actually, I think you'd really love to come and sit down and talk to this guy. I've talked to him not only briefly, but he's had an incredible journey. Now, this person, I can say, yeah, this guy can choose his gender. He's got both sexual organs. And he says, I feel like a woman, even though he's got children as a father. He's fathered them, and so. But I think, yeah, this person can make that choice. He said, because he's growing his own breasts, and you know what I mean. He's actually a woman. He says he feels like a woman, and that's who I am as a woman. But he had to make a choice. He's had a heck of a journey because of the horrible flawedness of the human structure. Again,
this great. Have they transferred from being born with both sets of organs to being just?
He's actually now a woman.
I'm just curious. Agree that Rachel is transgender and this is a genuine situation. Why are you still referring to her as he, him?
Because the problem is for me, Rachel still sounds and looks like a man. There's some really masculine things about him, and it's quite natural just to assume he's a man that's trying to be a woman, when he's actually a woman. That's what I mean. It's a really strange, incredible journey he's been on, or she's been on.
I know it's hard to understand from the outsider's point of view, because I've had transgender friends that I would not have known they were transgender because they present as one gender or the other, because it's a hard process, you know, with voices and body hair and just even the way the jaw's shaped. So I understand for Rachel it's probably been even harder, because I know if I looked like a man and I'm a girl, that would be horrible for me as well. And I can't imagine. I bet she's probably trying to train her voice and try and look more feminine and, you know, feel more like herself. But at the same time, I think that goes for a lot of people, whether they present at birth of having whichever organs or whatever, or being raised as whatever. I think it can still have that ability to be different depending on what happens perhaps in your life, or what hormones you have, or different things. I just think as we grow as a culture, things will change. And I think, yes, some people that are born intersex, you can choose the wrong gender, but some people are born with a penis or a vagina and they have the wrong gender with them as well. I think it is something that is innate. Your gender and your sex is usually they align, but sometimes they don't, and those people are transgender, and it can be very hard for them. And some people just live their whole life saying,
well, why can't that be seen as a mental illness?
It can be, and in some cases it is, if there's been some kind of dysfunction or trauma that's caused that. But in a lot of cases, from the get-go, you can tell that something's not lining up right. It just won't work, and they feel wrong. And there's been children that harm themselves and hurt themselves, and there's been children that have killed themselves because they just don't understand why they're being forced to conform into the role of a girl when they feel like a boy. It doesn't make sense. It's the same way as you consider raising a girl, trying to tell her, oh, you can be this gender, you can be that gender, and she's like, no, I want to be a girl. And they're like, oh no, but you can be a boy if you want. That's how it must feel to a transgender child. Do you understand? So if there's someone that's born a boy, but they feel like a girl, and they're like, oh, but you're a boy, and they're like, no, I'm not, I'm a girl. And no one's going to listen because they're 3 years old, but they're like, I don't know what to do. And then they just
see, again, that's a new problem of this age. And I think in the years past, if a young girl wanted to be a boy, she was let to be a boy, and they called her a tomboy, and she could do all the things that boys did and cracked on, even though she was a girl. And I don't think it was the same for lads as much. I think it was harder on young boys if boys want. But again, even that to a point, yeah, they can go and play with dolls and whatever, and you can do that. But I think it's what's wrong now. It's being enforced, that behaviour in the opposite direction. The girl said, oh yeah, I feel like a boy, I'm going to be a tomboy. And now they're saying, well, yeah, now I feel like a boy, we're going to send you to hospital, we're going to give you operations and force feed you steroids. And it's like, whoa.
Not on TV.
It's child abuse. That is happening. It's money, and it's about money, and the government's chucking down doctors' throats to get these kind of cases on, because hate makes them lots of money to ruin these children's lives.
It's not an influence of the trade a lot. It's something that just happens. But if I came out as transgender now, for instance, because I look quite masculine, I wear men's clothes, you know, I have short hair, but I'm still a girl.
You are the most beautiful women I've ever seen.
I'm fine with my sexuality and my gender, like as my identity, I'm fine with that. But for some other people, it doesn't feel right. It feels wrong. As if I started calling you a girl and she or her, it would feel wrong. And yes, it's complicated when we've all had it in the past, but in the past we've had much harder times to live through. These are some of the easiest years we've had, really. We're out of the war, you know, we have economic things and there's loads of things going on in the world, but it's not as bad as it used to be through like industrial revolution and starvation and plagues. Like, we're in quite a good period, really, so we can explore more with culture. But at the same time, those that are transgender cannot just get the surgery. That doesn't happen. If I came out as transgender now and said, look, I look like a bit of a boy, I think I don't want boobs and I want to have a penis, they would not do that. They would send me to therapy for at least 5 years.
In this country they would. You went to America, they wouldn't.
What?
If in this country they would, yeah, and that's right. In this country they would say, yeah, you'd have to go to therapy and blah blah blah. But you went to the States, you could get it done like that.
Depends on what system it is, because you have to get to have some kind of surgery to have a transition, and even in America you have to have had a certain amount of therapy, talk therapy or gender therapy with a specialist. I mean, yes, in private practice anything's possible. You can do it on the street, I suppose, with a knife and a spoon. I don't really know. That what people want to do in their own time, that's on them. But in the ways of being enforced, you do have to go through hoops, really, in this age still, to try and get any kind of gender affirming surgery, which is a shame.
Okay, but I think the problem that, again, I think a guy I listened to, he's Ben Shapiro. He's not a born again Christian or anything. He's a Jew, but he's very pragmatic and he's very matter of fact on issues like that. And I think the problem is transgender surgeries and stuff like that, they happen, but they don't actually answer any of the problems that they're trying to fix. They don't. In fact, the actual surgery can cause more problems mentally and emotionally than not having it. And he says it's not a good way of dealing with the issue. It's just creating more problems for that individual to go through and to cope with, a whole set of changes that could destroy them. He says, and he said he actually quoted some figures where the actual suicide statistics in people that have gone through transgender reassignment is incredibly high because they can't cope with what they're putting themselves through. So what do? Sit back and let them? It's kind of a self-euthanasia almost. You know what I mean? It's insane. If you can sit down and say, look, let's go through therapy, talk this through, and there's ways of living your life without going to these extremes that are going to put you in a place where you might want to take your own life. Wouldn't that be?
I mean, you can say, surgery because it doesn't fix the problem, but then people get nose jobs, like people get boob jobs. That's the exact same. It's just affirming themselves in their body. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. I know.
A boob job makes a woman feel like she's got bigger boobs, and that's what it does.
Yeah, so the same with trans people. So if a trans woman wanted boobs, they would just
that'd be a man getting boobs, and that's not true or correct. It'd be a man making himself have, because he would be able to have breasts naturally anyway. So no, not that could express milk. They couldn't.
They can.
Well, that's a phenomenon I've not heard of. It's not a natural phenomenon. It's not a mass phenomenon.
Yeah, I think Kurt Cobain did it. I'm not sure. There's loads of men can do it. It's just a hormone thing.
I'm not convinced of that. Again, you might be able to apply them with estrogen. Again, it's not a natural thing. You're altering the thing. So again, it's not. Men will not be able to naturally express milk. I've never ever a man that's been able to do that naturally. Hey.
What about women who can't do it?
Women can do it, they just have problems doing it half the time, and it's not a very nice thing for women to do. Sometimes they can get really sore and they can get very uncomfortable, and it's not an easy thing to do, and it's just one of them things about bringing up children. But women have the physical bodies to do that, men don't, and I think it's about supporting women through that. That's a really tough thing. I mean, as for women to go through with their children, and I don't want to, again, I don't think they should force women to breastfeed the children when they've got the option of. You know what I mean? It's ideally breastfeeding, brilliant, but it's not a big issue if it's not either. You know, but it's something that I think a woman can do, and does help bonding with the child.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Your mum did it with you. You had a special bond that if you didn't, you know what I mean? There's and that was part of your bonding with your mum as a baby.
Yeah. I don't think trans women would still. I don't feel threatened by a trans woman that would try and take the fact that I can have a child and she can't. Like, I think that's a general understanding with
men can't have children.
Men can't have children, no, but trans women can't have children either. That's I know that, they know that. Trans women, I don't.
That means they are not women.
Agree to disagree. I know it sounds great.
They can't give birth to children. They have not got that natural feminine instinct about that natural protectiveness over a young, innocent child baby's life. They've not got it the same way. Your mum had that in a different way to it. I remember driving home from the hospital at 20 miles an hour, and all these other motorists were getting really mad behind me and getting. But I thought, no, I've got Lucy here, and she's getting from A to B in one piece, and I don't care what the world thinks. It was almost irrational, but it was my love for you and my bonding relationship with you, and that was my job. You know what I mean? Don't care what the rest of the world thinks. Lucy's getting up, one piece, sod the rest of you, and I got you there, and you were the most precious thing. It's like, wow, Lucy's amazing, and it's that kind of love that it was an instant thing, but it happens in men and it happens in women, but it engages in a different way with men and women, because men and women are different, and you can't start pretending to be a woman and do a man do women's things and say I'm better than women. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. It's like, a man's won Woman of the Year. Rubbish. You know what I mean? He's been a woman 2 years. He's never given birth, and he's won Woman of the Year. And what an insult to women! It's like, there's women out there that've been women all their life. And several children know what it's like to be a woman, and they've been beaten by a man that thinks he's a woman. What an insult! How insane! This world's mad. That guy that won.
I think one of the reasons having differences is because I think the way you think, and a lot of the way that your subscribers or your friends all think, which is why I expect to be laughed at. You know, I know that I have very different views, and I do expect.
Laugh at you, princess. No.
But my view of woman, man, male, female, mother, father, parent, I think we have different understandings of what these roles are and what these mean. Because to me, mother and woman don't have to be the same. To me, father and man don't have to be the same. Parent, that can be anyone. Like, I just have different understandings of these words. Maybe it's the way I was brought up. Maybe it's the way I've been raised. Maybe it's the people I know. I don't know. But all I know is this is the way it works for me. This is the way I think is fine. I don't have any issue with it. I don't have any hate for anyone. If anyone wants me to call them pronouns, doesn't bother me. Doesn't change my life. Well,
that doesn't make sense. That's calling somebody they, them. Right, in the English language, that suggests plurality, more than one, and that's not true. They are an individual. They are, you know what I mean? They are they suggests there's more than one person there. Them suggests there's more than one person there, and that's not true. So they, them is not a proper description of who they are. It can be misleading, and I think it is misleading.
Group of people, now it can be a pronoun. It's used as a pronoun frequently.
But I am a he, and I don't think I have a choice in that. That's just the way I am, and pretending I have a choice in that, I think is. I could say I'm a he, she, whatever, but the reality is I'm not. I'm a man.
Pronouns. Everyone has pronouns. Like, you could be he, him, they, them. You could be, all of those could work for you. The only difference with non-binary people is they don't like the idea of being labelled as either a he,
don't
him.
like the idea. This is what I mean. They don't like facts. They don't like facts that don't suit them. And they kind of say, call it an oppression, they call it whatever, but the facts are they're a man or a woman. Doesn't matter how many pronouns they give themselves. Harriet is still a young, beautiful woman. If she likes it or not. Hey?
You're not finding it down. It doesn't bother me to call anyone by whatever pronouns they want.
Harriet can do what she wants. And I'm not going to judge her for it, but I am going to, what I'd say is, again, her lifestyle, I think she's missing out on being a woman. And I think she's probably do damage to herself in the long run as who she is. I'm not saying she can't experience life and enjoy it, but I think she'd get more out of it as a woman, because being a woman is amazing. Being a woman is brilliant. And I think that's been deterred away from this. Being a woman is absolutely amazing. Women are brilliant, and and hating women is wrong. And if you're a woman hating yourself, why are you hating yourself? You're a woman. It's like me being a man. White middle-aged men like me, we're the most hated men in the universe at the moment. Why? Because of the colour of my skin. This is silliness. Why? Because I've got some kind of privilege that other people say I have, and some people I haven't. And it's just, I'm just a bloke that's trying to get on with his life the best I can. And I love the people the most. And the best faith I've come across says the God of this universe is a God of love. And I thought, hey, that's what makes this world go around. I want to get into this God of love and find out what love's about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good way. And if that means, your other problem with me is I'm a man that's trying to find a good way of loving people in life. That's what my goal is in life.
It's a good goal.
And it means, yeah, I think it's a good goal as well. And I want to be able to love people the best, because to us, I'm rubbish at loving some people. I am, and I know it. I can be dead dismissive, and I can be dead arrogant, and think. But I know this is what I love about my God. It was actually with Donald Trump. At first, Donald Trump came into it, and I thought, this guy's an idiot. What's he doing? Blah blah blah. So he's ruined. He's a complete nutter, this guy. And then I felt the Holy Spirit in me convict me and say, Andy, you could pray for that man. He needs your prayer. Now love him properly. And I was like, and it really humbled me. I've got to start. These are people as well. Donald Trump doesn't go in there with a big thing, I'm going to ruin everybody's lives. He thinks he's doing the best he can, and he believes he's doing the best he can.
Yeah. People go about it the wrong way.
But I'm not going to sit there with a big stick anymore saying, oh, Donald Trump's a bad man. I'm not going to do that.
I suppose I just worry for the people that he does harm. So I know you say you don't believe that there's a white privilege. I personally do. I would believe that I did have a privilege. It's not something I would use, obviously, or support, but I do believe I have it. And an instance that I can sort of give an example is something I saw online about how in America the idea of police brutality and stuff like that. So if I saw a policeman and a black person having a fight, I don't know how many times it might happen. Obviously, the brutality, I'm not aware of it in this country. I'm not aware of how much it happens in this country. All I know is from what I've been told. It's not my knowledge, it's just what I've been told. But if there's a black person with a person that's in the police or something, they say to stand between the police officer and the black person. Put yourself in front of that black person, because your white privilege, or whatever this privilege is, you will feel it, because the police officer won't touch you. The police officer will dismiss you. They won't see it as worth it because you are a white person. But because black people are such a minority within the police system, they can just do anything. Like they can abuse a black person differently from a white person. It's a really messed up system from what I've read and what I've learned about it.
Well, that's you calling that policeman a racist, and that policeman may not be a racist.
The system is racist, not the policeman.
You're talking about institutionalized racism, and that doesn't make sense. You can't prove it exists. Well, you can't, because there's a lot of good policemen out there that aren't racists.
Yeah,
there are some policemen out there that are racists.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think all police are racist. I think this institution of the police and jail, especially in America, it is fixated around arresting black people, and a lot of it is in the statistics that I've read. They'll find the people who report crimes and they'll say it was a black guy. 9 times out of 10, they will pick a random black person nearest to the scene of the crime off the street and put him in jail and say, we found the guy, he's sorted, case closed. That black man won't have done anything wrong. He was just the nearest black man to the scene, and that has happened multiple times. That is genuine fact. You can research it. I've listened to multiple podcasts about people who have actually found their way out of jail. And there was one guy who was a rapper, and he wrote a song about how much he was praising God, and he didn't have any hate towards the police system. He was just glad he'd been released and found not guilty for this crime that he got put in jail for that he didn't do. He was just the closest black man to the incident, and it happens all the time.
I'm not saying incidents like that don't happen, but again, I think they're focusing on these and blowing them out of proportion. Because, again, if you look at statistics, there's more people arrested, white people arrested in America than there are black people. Why? Because the majority of the people in America are white. Yeah. More people, white people, die in custody in prison. White people, more statistically, there's more white people dying in police custody than black people. Why? Yeah. Because the majority of people in America are white, and it's because white people do commit crimes. They do have gun battles with the cops. They do resist arrest as well, and they get shot for it as well. And it's an issue that, again, I think they're making it an issue of the colour of skin, and I believe that's the problem. It's not a police officer will not shoot you unless you resist arrest. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10, and that's what I get fed up of seeing them. There was it got shown on YouTube, or pregnant black woman gets shot by the police, and that was a big clip on YouTube. And then the real video came out, and it was of this black woman. They didn't show you all this at first, but she had a knife. She was trying to stab a police officer, and she wasn't obviously pregnant either. She was only 1 or 2 months pregnant, and it didn't look like she was carrying a baby at all. But the police officer, and he shot her not to kill her, but just to wound her, and he was doing his job. But it came across as, oh, this white racist officer has shot this pregnant black woman, and I think there's so many issues in America that which are just they're all contradictory. There's racism. There is racism there, but it's blown out of proportion. But I think these issues are more cultural, and it's. Again, this is my whole point. If you look at black communities, the thing that's being destroyed in black communities are black families, and black men need to start taking responsibility for their families, for their wives and their children, and stop trying to be gangsters and start putting their wives first and their children first. And maybe then there will be not much of this kind of victimization and kind of, you know what I mean? The victim culture that's in Black America is, and
I don't think this on this one. I think it's a bit of a big topic because I don't agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think it's a long conversation maybe for next time.
There's evidence of that though.
I can't comment on it without properly going into it. It's not something I agree with.
Yeah, I know you might not agree with it, but the point is there's evidence of it. And again, this is my frustration, is you say you can't agree with it, but it's happening.
I think that's a bit of a generalization to say that black men are trying to be gangsters. I don't agree with that.
That is a generalization. Yeah, I agree with it. It's a generalization, but there is a culture of that in America.
We've got that white people in England too. That's just gangs. That's always going to be something that happens in places with low poverty. That is just a poverty thing. That's not a black thing. That's not a white thing. That's a poverty thing. Right.
I totally agree with you. See, it's nothing to do with the colour of skin.
You made it about colour of skin.
Right now, this is it. This is the whole point. See? This isn't the whole thing. It's nothing to do with colour of skin. It's nothing to do with racism. And if we stop talking about racism, half of these issues would go away. And that's why systemic racism, as you call it, is That's what I mean. I might be a racist and I don't even know it. Why am I racist? Because the colour of my skin? That's insanity. That's systemic racism.
You're not racist with white.
Right, you're right there, and that's very true. I'm not a racist at all, and I know I'm not racist. You know what I mean? It's not because I've got black friends or anything like that, but I've never in my life growing up judged somebody because of the colour of their skin. Some of my favourite actors, and where I looked at and gone, I've not looked at them and gone, oh look, they're brilliant because they're white. That's racism. I've looked at them and thought they're somebody I want to be, and one of them was Eddie Murphy. I wanted to be a Beverly Hills Cop when I was 12. You know what I mean? I wanted to be B.A. Baracus out of the A-Team because he was rock hard, and it wasn't because of the colour of his skin. I liked that person for what they were doing, and the colour of the skin didn't even come into my head.
That's a privilege to not have to be it.
It's not a privilege. It means I'm not a racist. That's all that means.
I mean, yeah, it's.
That's
not how you can think that, but to look at a screen and see a black person on screen and not think anything of it, that's a privilege because it's fine. But to a young black child, after all the racism and the slavery and the things they've been told, you know, this all happened. Black people were persecuted. Black people were abused. And to see a black person on TV, that is going to be something
There's always been black people on television.
No, there hasn't.
Yeah, there has.
No, there hasn't.
Anyway, it's super cool.
Yeah, in our time, yeah, but I'm speaking ages ago. That was something that it didn't happen, so they could admire it. And today, yeah, we're getting more black people on screen. We're getting more diversity. We're seeing people with different disabilities, different conditions, different.
I'm not interested in the colour of skin. If they're disabled, I'm not interested in any of that. What I'm interested in, are they a good actor?
It's representation, though. The representation is what matters.
That's insane again. Because if you watch television at the moment, you'll get loads of adverts with interracial couples, so black people being represented. And in fact, you'll get lots of adverts where it's mostly black people on it. And it's like, hang on a minute, is this actually representative of my country? No, It's nothing like my country. Because 90% of the people in this country are white. So what I'm seeing on television is a misrepresentation of what's actually living here, what's going on. If I went to South Africa and watched their television, you won't see a white face on the television because this country is predominantly black, and that's just the way it is. It's nothing to do with race. It's just to do with the way things are. And then we're being told, oh no, in this country, black people are just as important. We know that already. It's just the fact is that 90% of the population is white. Get over it. Can't do anything about it. It's just the way it is. It's not facts. Things are.
You say things, but no, I disagree with you. But we do not have time to get into this. This is a whole other debate where we're talking sexuality and gender. And I chose those two things because I thought we can do that in 2 hours. We cannot get into racism and.
Okay, we'll do that another time.
Yeah, because I can't do that before bed. I'll get to bed really angry. I can't.
Okay. No, I don't want you to go to bed angry.
No, I don't want to be angry. I can talk about this stuff, but yeah, I'll keep the race stuff because that's not my story. I can't do that. Not right now. I need to do more research and stuff like that.
No, I'm not saying racism is out there. Racism does need to be dealt with. I'm not saying it's not there, but racism is. I think racism is a very real thing that we can deal with, and we should deal with it. But at the same time, I don't believe the way that we're dealing with at the moment is going to have any effect or any use in actually fighting racism.
Yeah, it's just rebellion and revolution. It's like people go crazy one way, crazy the other way. It's always going to happen in waves of different things. It's just the way the world is. We just got to go with it and then hope it calms down and then go with the flow. I mean, I'm just going with the flow. I
know. And where's the rebel in that? Come on, princess.
The rebel is going with the flow. That's the most rebellious thing. The most rebellious thing to do is
go with the flow. Go with the flow.
Yeah, going with the flow is making sure other people aren't damaged.
In this conversation here, in this world at the moment, I'm the rebel.
No.
I am.
You follow God. That's your way of going with the flow.
I'm going to be the rebel. I'll tell you within the next few years, I will be persecuted for my beliefs because I'm the rebel, because I do not agree with what the world's telling me to believe. There's going to be a new global religion that says all religions are right. There's going to be a new one world order, and I'm going to disagree with a lot of the things it says, and I will be persecuted because of that.
You don't think victimize them?
No, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. I think that's probably one of the most important scriptures, the most important thing Jesus ever said. See, Christianity isn't complicated. People make it complicated. And that's, again, these are problems with gender. They're not complicated, they're quite simple, but people are making it complicated. All this thing that's going on with racism is not complicated. It's ignorance and stupidity mixed together in big lashings, but people are making it complicated, and it's frustrating world to live in. And
but I then about how you feel you're going to get persecuted.
Christianity is because of where the LGBT does paint Christianity. It's their version of Christianity as hypocrites, fear-mongering, homophobes, and that's what Christians are, and that's not true. With a lot of them, it's not.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of them are, and I've met a lot of them myself personally, and they've said some horrible, disgusting things to me. Yeah,
but what I'm trying to say is, in the future, that's the things Christians are going to be persecuted for when it's not true. That's going to be painted on them, saying, "Oh, you're a bunch of homophobic, racist, Nazi-loving, blah blah blah," and they'll paint that on us because we're just trying to tell them. Well, a proper true Christian is going to tell them that Jesus loves them.
That idea you've got there with being a Christian, put that onto, and like, you know how they have their own version of, and you're trying to explain to gay people whatever, but then that's the exact same for the community of gay people. You can generalize them and say, or transgender people, you can generalize them and say they're all mentally ill, only a few of them are real.
Yeah.
All Christians are LGBT hating Nazis, but some of them are all right. It's just generalizations. There's always going to be bad and good in every community.
Yeah, well, the point is, there was a man a long time ago, about in 1932, he started bad-mouthing the Jews in Nazi Germany, and it took him about 7 years. But by the end of the time, after shouting and getting propaganda through the media and stuff like that, Germany was a Jew-hating country because of the propaganda, because of the media, because of that, and that's why 6 million were exterminated.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen again, and that is happening again. That's the problem I have. This is happening again.
I mean, it wasn't 1 million people that died in the Holocaust. It was way more than that. It was like 12.
There was over 1 million gypsies because they were also not part of the. And not just that, he actually started with the Germans that didn't fit in, and the cripples and all the people that were handicapped. They were all executed first.
And the
homosexuals. They were all. But it's not about the homosexuality. Again, stop making about sexuality. It was because they didn't fit into the new world order.
I can't help it. I like making things about me. I'm just a self-obsessed millennial.
Exactly.
We can't be enjoying him. I'm just chilling. At least I'm happy.
Yeah.
I used to be so miserable. Can't be bothered.
No, I don't want you to be miserable, but I want you to just enjoy. I want you to enjoy your life, and I know you are. I'm seeing your health, and you're looking good, and you're enjoying your life, which is brilliant. And I'm really blessed that my daughter's doing so well. Really am. Chuffed to pieces.
Am I exhausted?
Yeah, I'm knackered now. Right, yeah, we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Because I've really enjoyed the conversation with you, Princess Lucy. It's been really good. We will do it again. We'll try and narrow it down a bit next time. to an hour or something on a particular topic, because we've covered so much tonight in such a and lots of different things, and we've not been able to go into it properly, as you said. And so we'll maybe do that on different subjects. But yeah, I don't, again, with what you believe, I think that's what the frustrating thing is, you know what I mean? You love Harriet and I love Harriet, and we both want to love her the right way. We've just got different ways of doing that. And it's not a wanting to, that's what I mean. That's sometimes I get frustrated with this kind of conflict, because there isn't as much conflict as people like to make out there is. And I think that's one another issue that I have, is that they want to highlight differences rather than the things that we have in common, and that's the problem I think we're facing now. And that, I think that's a spiritual thing, though, which is a dimension that I don't think you take into consideration. There's a spiritual force happening now that's hell-bent on pointing out differences when it shouldn't be pointing out differences. We're all created in the image of God, each and every one of us, and that's a unifying thing. So if there's anything you want to say, close on?
Sausages.
Sausages.
I can't think of anything productive to say. Yeah, I'm really tired now. I'm going to go bed.
Okay.
It's done.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Lucy, for this evening. We'll
having me on your channel.
Yeah, they'll probably
get to like and subscribe.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah.